Welcome, dearly beloved. Let's talk real. The kind of real that chills you to the bone because you know it's true. Don't ever mistake silence for weakness. Sometimes it's the quiet focus of a survivor who's already walked through hell and is now strategizing their next move. Chosen one, tonight we aren't dissecting textbook warfare. We're diving into the battles where your enemies thought they were sending predators, but in truth, they were sending lambs to the slaughter. Feel that truth resonate within you. You know, in covert operations, history whispers that more missions crumble not from the target's raw power, but from the target anticipating the ambush. This is exactly your story. Those who paid to attack you unwittingly signed them up for a suicide mission. They saw you as soft, distracted, unprepared. But every move they made only tightened the noose in the silent trap you crafted through years of enduring pain, seeking solace in isolation and being reborn stronger each time. Can you see how your past prepared you for this moment? Here's the irony that should make you smirk. They honestly thought you were the prey, but in reality, they were the test. They just didn't realize the exam came with lethal consequences. Let's inject some dark humor into this situation. Watching your enemies prepare to take you down is like watching someone bring a butter knife to a gunfight. Cute, but tragically misguided. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear will prove one undeniable truth when attacks aimed at a chosen one don't just fail but backfire with explosive force. The attacker is left wondering if they somehow stumbled into a fight with a celestial phantom sent straight from the divine. The first point, they mistook your stillness for weakness, failing to recognize it as precision. Feel the power of that shift in perspective. They mistook your stillness for weakness, not realizing it was precision. The single biggest mistake your enemies ever made was assuming your quiet demeanor equaled powerlessness. They saw you pause, observe, and refrain from immediate reaction. Have you experienced this misunderstanding firsthand? In their limited understanding, they concluded you were afraid, cornered, or simply clueless. But that stillness was your strategic brilliance. Every second of silence was spent calculating. Every moment of non-response honed your timing. Remember, a skilled assassin never wastes energy on wild swings. They wait for the one move that brings everything to a swift end. This is what they failed to grasp about you. Embrace the power of your calculated actions. Stillness isn't slumber. It's heightened awareness operating on a level they can't even begin to comprehend. While they were busy flinging gossip lies and attacks in your direction, you stood resolute, deconstructing their patterns. You identified the puppet masters, the weak links, those who falter under pressure, and those who believed themselves untouchable. By the time they believed they had you cornered, you had already mapped out their downfall. Feel the surge of quiet confidence as you dismantle their plans. Your stillness is precision because it denies them control. Attackers thrive on reactions. They yearn for you to flinch, panic break formation, giving them the signal for victory. But by refusing to react, by remaining unshaken, you starve their schemes. They swing wildly into the air, wasting their energy while you conserve yours for the decisive strike. See how your composure throws them off balance. That's assassin-level training. Never waste motion, never reveal your weapon until the moment of truth. And here's the kicker that stings the most. They genuinely thought they were intimidating you, but in reality you were studying them like open books. Your silence wasn't fear. It was X-ray vision. Understand how your silence becomes your strongest weapon. You were extracting information from their every move while giving nothing away in return. That's why they appear so bewildered now. They can't fathom how someone they underestimated has dismantled every trap they set. They can't process how you survived attacks they were convinced would destroy you. The truth is simple: weakness panics, strength prepares, and you, my friend, prepared. When you finally move, it's not noisy or desperate, but surgical. Feel the liberation of being prepared. That's why your enemies are left reeling, wondering what just happened, realizing too late that they weren't facing prey, but exposing themselves to a precision they never anticipated. Number 2, they hired beginners to challenge someone who trains in darkness. Are you ready to see why their attempt was doomed from the start? They hired beginners to challenge someone who trains in darkness. This was the root of their undoing. The individuals sent to attack you weren't seasoned warriors. They were amateurs driven by jealousy, pride, and cheap payoffs. They believed gossip could shake you. Lies could bury you, and intimidation could paralyze you. What they failed to realize is you've been through training money can't buy. Recognize the invaluable worth of your unique training. Your battles weren't theoretical. They were lived. Every betrayal endured, every loss carried in silence, every night spent rebuilding yourself without a single soul to call. That was your boot camp. You were trained by the pain they've only pretended to survive. The darkness was your classroom. Acknowledge the profound impact of your personal trials. While others fled from the storms, you weathered them, mastering them. You cultivated patience, resilience, and unwavering focus when no one applauded, when no one believed, when you had to sharpen yourself without external validation. That's why their attacks fell flat. They acted out of fleeting emotion while you were forged through years of endurance. They swung wildly while you hit targets with deadly accuracy. Can you feel the unshakable strength forged in your most difficult times? It's the difference between someone who's shadowboxing for show and someone who's been in real fights. You've survived betrayals from loved ones, abandonment from those you trusted, and setups designed to utterly destroy you. Those experiences transformed you into something no mercenary could ever match. Embrace the truth: you are battle-tested. That's why when they tried to take you down, they were already out of their depth. They were trained by greed, but you were trained by fire. And here's the brutal truth: they thought they were walking into an easy job, but they were signing up for humiliation. Attacking you was never going to be a win. It was a lesson for them. See their attempt for what it is: a futile act. They were too inexperienced to see that when they came against you, they weren't just dealing with a person, but with everything you've survived. That survival is what makes you dangerous. It's what makes you untouchable. So while they operated like reckless novices, you stood like someone who had already graduated from a school they couldn't survive a single day in. That's why they failed. That's why they're shaken. Let them underestimate you at their own peril. They underestimated the years of training that came from your darkness, and they learned the hard way that no rookie can outfight someone born in the shadows and mastered them. Number 3, they didn't understand that you learn survival by dying daily. Are you ready to tap into the strength that comes from constant renewal? They didn't understand that you learn survival by dying daily. The enemies who came against you assumed pain was novel to you. Betrayal would shock you, or isolation would weaken you. What they failed to realize is your entire life has been a series of deaths and resurrections. Take a moment to reflect on the many versions of yourself that you've outgrown. You've died to friendships you thought were eternal, died to family connections that turned toxic, died to opportunities that were stolen, and died to versions of yourself that couldn't bear the weight of your calling. Each time you rose again, sharper, stronger, and more refined. Feel the power of your constant evolution. This is why their attacks had no real effect. They were swinging at a person who had already buried countless versions of themselves and learned to breathe again after every loss. Those they paid to hurt you thought they could break you with a wound, but they didn't know you've been walking with scars for years. Acknowledge the scars that prove your resilience. Pain no longer surprises you, it educates you. Every time you were cut, you learned to heal faster. Every time something inside you collapsed, you discovered a new strength you didn't know existed. When someone has learned to die daily, survival ceases to be about clinging to life and becomes about mastering transformation. Do you understand how your pain has become your teacher? You don't resist change anymore, you absorb it. You bend with it. You grow through it. That's what makes you untouchable. You've lost too much to be shaken by another loss. You've been rejected too many times to crumble at rejection. You've been forced to rebuild from nothing so many times that starting over doesn't terrify you. It empowers you. Feel the empowerment that comes from mastering change. This is the edge your enemies didn't see coming. They thought an attack would be your end, but for you, endings are beginnings. They thought betrayal would leave you broken, but betrayal has always been your trainer. They thought loss would silence you, but loss taught you how to speak with more power. See how everything they threw at you only amplified your strength. By the time they launched their mission against you, you were no longer the fragile target they imagined, but someone who had walked through fire and emerged with the flames as armor. The truth is, they didn't face someone who feared death, but someone who has turned dying daily into a survival skill. Embrace the undeniable truth: you are unkillable. And that kind of person doesn't just endure attacks. They turn every strike into resurrection fuel. Number 4, they mistook numbers for power, not knowing you fought alone against armies. Are you ready to understand why their numerical advantage was meaningless? They mistook numbers for power, not knowing you fought alone against armies. The truth is, there's no safety in numbers when the group itself is weak, fragmented, and fueled by nothing but shared hatred. They believed gathering in packs would intimidate you, that the sound of many voices and the pressure of collective force would bury you. But they didn't know you've spent years in solitude fighting battles from every direction without a single hand to help you. Remember the times you faced adversity alone. You were forced to become your own army. While they depended on each other for strength, you learned to generate strength from within. That kind of training changes everything. Solitude made you surgical. It taught you to spot weaknesses in groups, see cracks in their so-called unity, watch one person's hesitation infect the whole. Where they needed numbers for power, you discovered true power comes from precision. Feel the self-reliance that comes from facing adversity alone. When you fought alone against storms of betrayal, abuse, and spiritual warfare, a group of enemies looks less like an army and more like easy prey. They don't realize numbers create noise and noise creates mistakes. The bigger their circle, the more room for errors, egos, and conflicts. Recognize the weaknesses within their perceived strength. You never needed 20 hands. You needed one move. That one move is focus, resilience, and knowing who you are when no one stands with you. Numbers don't scare someone who has faced battles with zero support and still survived. Embrace the fact that you are your own greatest asset. In fact, their numbers expose them because you see how desperately they cling to each other for courage while you stand firm on your own. They thought you would panic under the weight of so many voices against you. But you've already endured seasons where the whole world felt against you. Those were your training grounds. Remember, you've already faced worse. That's where you learn to dismantle enemies who think their strength comes from togetherness, when in reality it comes from discipline and spiritual depth. So when they came at you in numbers, they unknowingly repeated history. Armies fall not because of how many they have, but because of who they face. Let them underestimate the force you command, and when the one they face has survived armies in silence, the crowd doesn't intimidate them. It collapses before them. Number 5, they thought you were their target, but you were actually the test. Are you ready to see how they were pawns in a much larger game? They thought you were their target, but you were actually the test. That's the twist they never saw coming. In their minds, you were just another victim to use, betray, and discard without consequence. See how their limited vision led to their downfall. They believed the contract was simple. Destroy you, silence you, take what they could from you. But the whole setup was never really about you. It was about them. The divine positioned you as the measure, the mirror, the dividing line that revealed who they truly were beneath the surface. Understand the role you played in their exposure. When they plotted against you, they weren't just exposing hatred, but their own blindness. They couldn't see the bigger picture. Their actions were watched. Their motives recorded, their choices weighed against eternity. They thought they were hunting, but their hunt became evidence against them. Acknowledge the greater purpose behind their actions. Your presence brought their real character into the light. It was never about your destruction, but about exposing their greed, dishonor, and cowardice. Every attack became a confession. Every scheme revealed their true loyalty. By coming after you, they showed they had no spiritual vision, no discernment, no understanding of who they were touching. Feel the weight of their self-exposure. They were blind to the fact that chosen ones carry an assignment far beyond human eyes. They couldn't see the weight on your life. When they reached for you, they reached into a trap that would strip them bare. This unsettles them now. See how they fell into their own trap. They thought you were bait for destruction, but you were bait for revelation. They didn't fail because you fought back harder, but because they exposed themselves. Their hands betrayed them, their words betrayed them, their choices screamed louder than anything you could have ever said. Recognize that their actions spoke volumes. The divine never needed you to retaliate, just to stand still long enough for their true selves to emerge. And when it did, the test was marked. They failed. You weren't the hunted, but the assignment designed to reveal who was blind, who was greedy, and who was too cowardly to stand for truth. They weren't exposing you. You were exposing them. Number 6, they didn't know you don't fight fair, you fight final. Are you ready to see how you end the game for good? They didn't know you don't fight fair, you fight final. Your enemies assumed you would react like most, trading insult for insult, strike for strike, wound for wound. They expected childish games where nobody wins and the war drags on. But you don't fight to entertain or prove a point. You fight to end things so thoroughly the same battle never rises again. Embrace the finality of your actions. That's why they never stood a chance. Your defense isn't about scratching back or teaching temporary lessons, but about creating a response so decisive the threat itself collapses. You don't just silence attacks, you dismantle the ability to attack again. Do you understand the long-term impact of your strategies? That's the mindset of someone who has fought too many battles to waste energy on round 2. Survival requires efficiency. If you strike, it's surgical. If you defend, it's absolute. And once it's done, it's done. Those who came against you didn't realize this. Embrace the fact that you end battles permanently. They thought they were playing chess with someone distracted, emotional, and easily manipulated, but you weren't playing their game. You were rewriting the rules. You don't retaliate with petty moves, but with finality. When you close a door, it stays closed. When you expose an enemy, their mask never fits again. Feel the liberation of setting your own rules. When you declare war over, it's because there's nothing left for war to hold on to. This terrifies them. They're used to people who leave cracks room for reconciliation, who can be provoked into endless retaliation. But you aren't built like that. You cut cycles, close chapters, seal coffins. Recognize why your methods instill fear. That's why anyone who comes against you ends up regretting it, not because you shout louder, but because you leave no chance for round 2. It's the assassin in you. Assassins don't fight fair because fairness drags battles into the future. They fight final because their mission is closure. And that's what you embody. When someone tries to destroy you, they don't get an extended war, but their last war. Acknowledge the power of your swift and decisive endings. You don't waste time scratching back because scratches heal. You strike where it ensures there's no comeback. That's why every attack against you turns into silence. Once you end it, it never rises again. Number 7, they thought you operated in the physical, not knowing your arena is the invisible. Are you ready to explore the realm where you truly dominate? They thought you operated in the physical, not knowing your arena is the invisible. That's why they failed before they even began. They plotted with human strategies, schemed with earthly weapons, organized attacks through gossip, lies, intimidation, and manipulation. Tools that work well on ordinary people. See how they limited themselves to a single dimension. But you aren't ordinary. You've never been. Your strength doesn't come from the surface, from fists or threats or numbers, but from a realm they cannot touch. That's what makes you untouchable. The truth is, while they built traps in the physical, you dismantled them in the spirit. Acknowledge the fact that your strength comes from beyond. They prepared flesh and blood weapons, but you don't war in flesh and blood. You war in prayer, discipline, and the unseen spaces where their plots have no oxygen. Every move they made in the natural already collapsed in the invisible before it could touch you. They couldn't understand why their attacks never landed the way they planned. Do you understand how your actions in the invisible shape reality? It's because they were swinging at smoke while you struck at their spirit. That unsettles them most. You don't look like a fighter, but you fight on a level they can't comprehend. They were prepared for an argument, breakdown, or visible reaction. Recognize how your actions transcend the physical. Instead, they got silent strategy and a counterattack that didn't come from your hands, but from the power that backs you. You didn't need to chase them down. You let the unseen world handle what their eyes couldn't recognize. Here's where their blindness betrayed them. They assumed because you didn't fight back physically that you weren't fighting at all. Feel the peace that comes from trusting in a higher power. They mistook your refusal to get dirty with their tactics as weakness, when it was evidence that you were operating in another dimension. Their weapons can only wound flesh. Yours strike spirit, mind, and destiny. That's why you didn't just survive their attacks, but reversed them. Every chosen one knows the real battlefield isn't in what people see, but in what they can't. That's why you're still standing. Embrace the truth, your strength lies in the unseen. That's why they're exhausted and confused. They were busy bruising your body and name, but you were dismantling the very spirit behind their attacks. In the end, they were left swinging into nothing while you walked away victorious from a war they never understood. Number 8, they saw scars as proof of weakness, not as badges of immunity. Are you ready to see how your scars are your armor? They saw scars as proof of weakness, not as badges of immunity. That's where they miscalculated. To them, your scars looked like evidence you'd been damaged, broken down too many times to rise again. They mistook the marks left by your battles as signs you could be taken out easily. Remember, they see your past as your weakness. But every scar was a certificate of survival, proof you faced weapons sharper than theirs and still walked away breathing. Scars don't make you fragile. They make you resistant. Your enemies don't understand the things they think disqualify you are the same things that make you impossible to destroy. Every betrayal hardened your discernment. Acknowledge the power of your resilience. Every heartbreak toughened your spirit. Every setup rewired your instincts. The poisons they thought would paralyze you became the medicine that trained your system to handle worse. When you've survived venom, a sting doesn't scare you. That's the power of someone who's been through fire. They don't flinch at smoke or panic at sparks. Embrace the fact that you are immune to their attacks. You've already been engulfed, burn-tested by flames meant to incinerate you. And yet you came out walking. So when they launch recycled tactics, old tricks with new faces, they don't realize you've been inoculated. They're giving you a dose of poison you've already built immunity against. Recognize how you've grown stronger from every past experience. It's like watching an enemy pull out a weapon you've been cut with before. The first time it drew blood and almost ended you, but you survived and the wound became wisdom. Now when they swing with that same blade, it doesn't pierce you. It bounces off the armor your scars created. That's why they're frustrated. Let them be confused by your unwavering strength. They can't understand why the traps they used on others collapse when it comes to you, or why the poison they're used to deploying so easily suddenly has no effect. The truth is, simple scars are not signs of defeat, but signs of resilience. They tell the story of someone who didn't just survive, but evolved. Embrace the truth, you are unbreakable. And when evolution has hardened your spirit, no recycled plot, familiar betrayal, or repeated weapon can succeed. They thought scars meant you were weak. In reality, scars meant you were immune. Number 9, they thought they could corner you, not knowing you are the trap. Are you ready to turn their plans against them? They thought they could corner you, not knowing you are the trap. That's the irony of their entire mission. They believed they were clever, that their schemes would pin you down and strip you of options. To them, every rumor, lie, and calculated betrayal was tightening the walls around you. See how their arrogance blinded them. They expected to see you panic, scramble, and finally prove you weren't as strong as you appeared. What they never realized was that your so-called corner was bait. You were never being trapped. You were doing the trapping. Acknowledge that you are the one in control. This is what separates you from them. While they played checkers, you set up chess. You let them believe you were outnumbered, that their plans were hidden, that underestimate your silence. All the while you were studying them, allowing them to gather, expose themselves, and overcommit. Feel the power of your strategic mind. They couldn't see that their ambition was tightening the noose, not around your neck, but around theirs. That's the assassin's strategy. Real power doesn't run from ambushes, it manufactures them. You don't waste time chasing enemies when you can make them come to you. That's exactly what happened. Do you understand how you manipulated their actions? They took the bait of their own arrogance and followed the trail of their greed. Before long, they were so deep in their attacks they had no idea the walls were closing in on them. What they thought was victory was self-exposure. They thought you were cornered, but corners are where hunters wait. Let them walk into their own demise. You turned what looked like weakness into the perfect setup. The more they pressed, the more evidence they created against themselves. The more they tried to box you in, the clearer their intentions became to everyone. By the time they realized what was happening, it was too late. They had walked into the net you pretended not to weave. This is why they can't win against you. Acknowledge the fact that their actions were the key to their destruction. Their strength lies in deception, but your strength lies in patience and strategy. They only know how to chase. You know how to lure. They assumed you were the hunted, but you were waiting calm, precise, and unbothered until they trapped themselves. What they thought was your downfall was their exposure. They didn't corner you, they crowned you. Number 10, they thought they could break you with fear, not knowing you're intimate with it. Are you ready to see how you've mastered your greatest enemy? They thought they could break you with fear, not knowing you're intimate with it. Fear isn't new to you, not a stranger intruder or a master over your life anymore. You've lived with fear in ways most wouldn't survive. You've walked through nights so heavy breathing felt like a battle-faced betrayals that left you unsure if you'd ever trust again, and endured losses that made the future look like a dark hallway with no exit. Acknowledge the fact that you've lived with fear as a companion. Fear has sat at your table, slept in your room, and shadowed you for years. But here's the difference: you never let it own you. You studied it, confronted it, and stripped it of its power. That's why when they tried to use fear as a weapon against you, it failed before it touched you. Feel the power of taking control of your fear. They thought fear was going to paralyze you, but it's already been your trainer. They thought it would shut you down, but fear taught you discipline. It taught you to keep moving even with shaking knees, to speak truth when your voice trembled. And that courage isn't the absence of fear, but mastering it. Embrace the fact that fear has made you stronger. So when they pulled out intimidation, you didn't crumble but smiled, because they were using a weapon you already owned. The truth is, fear lost its grip on you years ago. At some point you realized fear was nothing more than an emotion waiting for direction. You stopped letting it control you and started making it work for you. See how their weapon is a tool for your success. Where others freeze, you focus. Where others retreat, you advance. Where others second-guess, you strike. That's why you've been able to step into situations that would break the average person. Fear sharpened you and turned into a blade in your hands, sharper than any threat your enemies could throw. This unsettles them most. Acknowledge the fact that you've turned your weakness into your strength. They're used to people folding at the first sign of intimidation, to fear turning men into cowards and women into silence. But you aren't wired that way. You've danced with fear long enough to know its rhythm, and now you lead the steps. They didn't break you with it. They built you with it, and that's why they can't win. Let their actions be a testament to your unwavering strength. Because every time they swing fear at you, you cut deeper with the very blade they thought would destroy you. Number 11, they didn't realize every attack makes you smarter, while every attack makes them sloppier. Are you ready to see how their actions led to their own downfall? They didn't realize every attack makes you smarter, while every attack makes them sloppier. This is the part of the story they'll never admit. You were never losing when they came against you. You were learning. Every scheme thrown at you was meant to crush you. but all it did was educate you. Recognize how their actions provided you with valuable lessons. You took note of who betrayed you, how they moved, what methods they used, and how quickly they revealed themselves when pressure hit. You became a student of your own battles, absorbing the lessons while refusing to let the pain make you bitter. That's why every attack only made you sharper. Acknowledge the knowledge that has been gained through adversity. Your enemies, on the other hand, are reactionary. They can't help but show their hand too early. They get excited, greedy, or desperate, and in the heat of it all, they expose their own weaknesses. They don't know patience or discipline or how to play a long game. Every time they attack, they burn energy they can't get back while you conserve yours. See how their weaknesses are their undoing. Every time they strike, they confirm their intentions to everyone watching while you stay steady and let them unravel themselves. This is why the scales shifted in your favor without you lifting a finger. You learned how to adapt mid-battle. When one attack didn't work, you adjusted your defense. When betrayal blindsided you, you restructured your circle. When lies tried to bury you, you built strength in your truth. Embrace the adaptability that will lead to your victory. Slowly, every attempt at your downfall became another layer of wisdom. You became immune to their games not because they stopped, but because you trained yourself to use each one as a stepping stone. Meanwhile, they got sloppier, repeated tactics became predictable and careless with their words, reckless with their alliances, and lazy with their setups. Let their carelessness be the catalyst for your success. Where they once thought they were outsmarting you, they were actually exposing themselves as amateurs while you graduated to mastery. The irony is clear. They thought constant attacks would wear you down, but constant attacks only made you evolve. Every loss turned into knowledge, betrayal into discernment, and hit into strategy. Feel the evolution that has come from being attacked. You didn't just survive the battle, you became lethal in it. And now their own aggression is the very reason they can never defeat you. They armed you with everything you needed to destroy them without even trying. And number 12, they didn't know their assignment was actually suicide. Are you ready to see the tragic irony in their actions? They didn't know their assignment was actually suicide. That's the cruel twist of their own choices. They were so eager to take you out, so blinded by greed, envy, or the promise of a quick payout that they didn't stop to ask what they were signing up for. Recognize the consequences of their blind ambition. They assumed the assignment was simple: target you, weaken you, remove you. But chosen ones don't fall like ordinary people. When they came against you, they weren't just launching an attack. They were writing their own ending. Acknowledge the power that will protect you from harm. This is what separates you from the average target. Assassins don't fight on the surface. They flip the assignment back onto the attacker. Every scheme they thought would silence you became the trap that silenced them. Every rumor spread came back to stain their name. Every lie believed would destroy you ended up destroying their credibility. Embrace the fact that their plots were doomed from the start. They didn't know that going after you wasn't just dangerous, but fatal to their reputation, alliances, and even sanity. The reality is trying to kill what the divine has appointed is the fastest way to kill yourself. They didn't understand that. They saw you as a human opponent, but you weren't standing alone. You were backed by something higher, untouchable. Let them be consumed by their own folly. Their assignment wasn't against flesh and blood, but against divine will. That's why it collapsed so brutally. They weren't fighting you, but the one who sent you, and nobody survives that fight. What makes it even more tragic is that they could have chosen differently and walked away. But instead they sold themselves into destruction. Do you understand the magnitude of the force that will protect you? The moment they signed up to harm you, they signed a death note for their own peace blessings and future. They thought they were cashing in on your downfall, not realizing they had just invested in their ruin. So yes, they believed they were taking you out, but they were digging their own grave with every step. That's the assassin's truth. Feel the weight of their tragic fate. You never let an attack stay on you. You turn it back on the sender. By the time they realize what's happening, it's too late. The contract they thought was about your end was about theirs. Their assignment wasn't a mission. It was suicide. Number 13, they saw you as prey, not realizing you were predator in disguise. Are you ready to embrace the truth of your power? They saw you as prey, not realizing you were predator in disguise. That's the miscalculation they made, and it cost them more than they could afford. They looked at you through shallow eyes, your quietness, patience, and endurance, and assumed it was weakness. They thought because you didn't roar, you couldn't bite. They mistook humility for helplessness and endurance for fragility. See how their limited vision blinded them. What they didn't know was the chosen master, the art of camouflage. You learned early that showing your full strength too soon only feeds the enemy's strategy. So you let them underestimate you and walk confidently into their own undoing. That's the real skill of a spiritual predator. It isn't always about attacking first. Acknowledge the strength that lies hidden within you. It's about letting your enemy reveal themselves fully. While they assumed they had cornered prey, you were studying them, memorizing their weaknesses, and waiting for the moment when the hunter becomes the hunted. Every move they made, thinking they had the upper hand, only placed them deeper into your line of sight. Feel the liberation that comes from controlling the hunt. They mistook your silence for fear, not realizing it was calculation. And when the tables turned, their hands betrayed them. That's why those hands raised against you now tremble. It's not because you shouted, threatened, or retaliated as they expected, but because you unmasked them with precision. Embrace the fact that their fear is a sign of your power. They thought they had you trapped, but you were the trap all along. The predator doesn't chase, but stalks, waits, and then strikes once in a way that leaves no room for retaliation. The truth is, being chosen equips you with an instinct ordinary people don't have. Recognize that you possess a unique and powerful instinct. You've survived enough ambushes to know how to play weak until it's time to reveal strength, endured enough betrayal to recognize patterns others would miss, and been overlooked long enough to perfect the art of hiding power until it's too late for your enemies to escape it. That's why the trembling isn't just fear, but recognition. Feel the strength that has been forged through your past experiences. They realized too late they weren't hunting prey at all, but walked into the presence of someone who had been studying them from the shadows. Someone who knows how to finish battles without even starting them. They saw you as prey, but you were the predator in disguise. The quiet storm-hidden blade, the one who never needed to be loud to be lethal. And by the time they discovered the truth, the hunt was over. And number 14, they thought your wrath would look human, but it's divine. Are you ready to see the force that will bring about justice? They thought your wrath would look human, but it's divine. That was their first mistake, believing you would respond to betrayal and attack the way they would. They expected tantrums, petty revenge, loud words, or desperate scrambling. They thought you would swing blindly out of anger, fighting them on their level. See how their limited vision led them astray. But chosen ones don't fight from ego but assignment. Your retaliation is never about proving a point but carrying out the mandate that has been placed in you. That's why when you move, the atmosphere shifts. Your response is not fueled by pride but purpose, and that makes it untouchable. Embrace the divine purpose that guides your actions. When power is behind your actions, your wrath doesn't just stop an enemy, but dismantles their foundation. People underestimate this because divine retaliation doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's silent collapse, unseen battles that leave your enemies restless, broke, sick, or exposed. Do you understand the depth of the forces that move on your behalf? They think it's coincidence, but it's consequence. You don't need to plot their downfall. It's built into the mission you're carrying. Their attack wasn't just against you, but the one, 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 but the one,